Some soldiers leave the battlefield, but the battlefield never truly leaves them. It remains hidden in their silence, waiting for a sound, a face, or an unfinished promise to bring it back to life. Rambo, First Blood Part 2 transforms that buried memory into a muscular rescue adventure, but beneath the explosions lies a carefully engineered Hollywood product built from emotion, technology, star power, and financial risk. Released in 1985, the film sends John Rambo back to Southeast Asia after he is offered freedom from prison in exchange for completing a reconnaissance mission. He is ordered to photograph a camp where American prisoners may still be held. He is not supposed to engage the enemy or attempt to rescue. But Rambo understands that war rarely obeys the instructions written by men sitting safely behind computer screens. The production represented a major creative gamble. Contemporary reports placed its budget at approximately $21 million, although later industry databases have listed higher estimates. Either figure made it a serious investment for its era. The filmmakers were not simply financing another action movie. They were investing in Sylvester Stallone as an international brand, in practical destruction as visual spectacle, and in a national emotional wound that still influenced American audiences. The result is less psychologically subtle than the first film, but far more commercially aggressive. It converts a wounded veteran into a mythic action figure. Its story is simple enough to understand instantly, its imagery is powerful enough to sell through a poster, and its emotional promise is clear. One abandoned soldier will return to the place that damaged him and complete the mission that institutions failed to finish. The first half begins with Rambo performing hard labor inside a prison camp. Colonel Troutman arrives with an offer that sounds like freedom but functions like a business contract. Rambo provides a rare and highly valuable skill set. The government provides equipment, transportation, intelligence, and a possible pardon. Each side enters the agreement with different expectations, creating an unstable partnership from the beginning. Murdoch, the official controlling the operation, explains that the mission is limited to photography. This limitation is not accidental. The authorities appear to want evidence that no prisoners remain, allowing the case to be closed without creating a costly political crisis. Rambo immediately senses dishonesty. His instinct operates like experienced risk analysis. He notices inconsistencies before he can prove fraud. The equipment sequence presents the mission like a technology demonstration. Cameras, radios, weapons, explosive arrows, and aircraft create the impression of modern control. Yet Rambo loses much of his equipment during the dangerous parachute insertion. The film is making an important point through action. Expensive technology can fail, but trained human judgment remains adaptable. Guided by Co., a local intelligence operative, Rambo reaches the prison camp and discovers that American captives are still alive. Instead of following orders, he rescues one prisoner. This is the emotional turning point of the first half. The mission changes from data collection into moral action. Like a startup abandoning an incorrect prototype after receiving real customer evidence, Rambo changes the plan because reality has exposed the weakness of the original strategy. The second half begins when the rescue appears successful. Rambo reaches the extraction point carrying the weakened prisoner, and the helicopter approaches. For a moment, the audience receives the emotional reward it has been promised. Then Murdoch orders the aircraft to abandon them. The betrayal is effective because it transforms the central conflict. The enemy is no longer located only inside the jungle. It also exists inside the mission's own management structure. Rambo is captured and tortured by Vietnamese soldiers and their Soviet advisor, Lieutenant Colonel Podolsky. The sequence removes his physical control while preserving his psychological resistance. Podolsky wants him to send a warning message. Rambo instead turns the communication system into a declaration that he is coming for Murdoch. A tool designed to break him becomes a channel for his revenge. Co helps him escape, briefly creating the possibility of companionship and a life beyond war. Her death destroys that possibility almost immediately. From this point onward, the action becomes faster, harder, and more personal. Rambo uses mud, vegetation, darkness, fire, and silence to eliminate his pursuers. The environment becomes an extension of his body. The climax delivers the film's emotional product-market fit. Rambo captures a helicopter, returns to the camp, frees the prisoners and defeats the pursuing aircraft. He brings the captives home, destroys Murdoch's control room and demands that the country honor the people who served it. The narrative payoff is efficient because every major promise is answered. The prisoners are found, the betrayal is exposed, the enemy is defeated, and the abandoned soldier finally forces the institution to listen. Rambo's psychology is built around trauma, loyalty, and purpose. He is uncomfortable in ordinary society because his most valuable abilities belong to an environment that destroyed him. Combat gives him direction, but it also reopens his wounds. This creates a painful behavioral cycle. The place where he is most effective is also the place where he is most psychologically vulnerable. His decision to rescue the prisoner demonstrates moral agency. He has been ordered to observe, but observation becomes impossible once suffering is directly in front of him. Behavioral economics tells us that immediate human evidence often affects decisions more strongly than distant statistics. A missing soldier is an abstract number. A starving prisoner standing before him becomes a moral obligation. Murdoch represents institutional self-protection. He avoids personal risk while controlling the decisions of people exposed to danger. His behavior follows loss aversion. He fears the political cost of discovering prisoners more than he values the human benefit of rescuing them. Protecting his position becomes more important than completing the stated mission. Troutman operates as Rambo's emotional anchor. He understands both the soldier and the institution, but he cannot fully control either. Coe represents another possibility: trust without command, affection without manipulation, and a future without exploitation. Her death pushes Rambo back toward the identity he knows best. His final anger is therefore not simple aggression. It is grief, betrayal, and the recognition that powerful systems repeatedly value his usefulness while ignoring his humanity. The film's financial story is almost as dramatic as its plot. Budget estimates vary, with contemporary reporting placing production near $21 million and later databases listing significantly higher figures. Even at the higher estimate, its worldwide theatrical gross of approximately $300 million demonstrates extraordinary commercial demand. However, box office revenue is not the same as studio profit. Cinemas retain a portion of ticket sales, while distributors deduct marketing, prints, transportation, overhead, and contractual expenses. Production financing also carries interest and risk. A proper financial analysis therefore avoids dividing gross revenue by the budget and calling the result profit. The true return depends on how revenue moves through the distribution chain. The producers reduced risk through foreign pre-sales. International distribution rights were sold before the completed film reached cinemas, allowing expected overseas demand to support production financing. This resembles a company securing major purchase commitments before manufacturing its final product. Stallone's established popularity served as collateral because buyers were purchasing confidence in his global audience. The financial ecosystem continued beyond cinema tickets. Home video, television licensing, posters, games, toys, clothing, and branded merchandise extended the property's earning life. The film therefore functioned as intellectual property rather than a one-time theatrical event. Its commercial strength came from converting one recognizable character into multiple revenue channels. From an EBITDA perspective, the important lesson is scale. Once the expensive feature had been completed, the same character and imagery could be monetized repeatedly. The explosions attracted audiences, but the enduring asset was the brand. Rambo had become more than a fictional person. He had become a globally recognizable commercial symbol. The filmmaking technology belongs to the final great period before digital effects became dominant. Explosions were physical, aircraft were photographed in real environments, stunt performers faced genuine movement, and sets had to survive carefully timed destruction. The danger visible on screen often carries additional weight because real objects are interacting with real gravity. The production used Panavision equipment, Technicolor presentation, and Dolby Stereo in selected cinemas. These technologies helped transform humid Mexican landscapes into a convincing cinematic version of Southeast Asia. Wide lenses captured aircraft, rivers, and military camps, while telephoto photography compressed soldiers and jungle into tense layers of movement. One major camp destruction sequence reportedly required hundreds of gallons of gasoline, large quantities of black powder, thousands of feet of primer cord, and an extensive network of firing wire. 4 cameras photographed the destruction, including one positioned in another helicopter. This was not simply creative spectacle. It was risk management. A practical explosion cannot always be repeated, so multiple cameras protect the financial value of the event. Editing technology was mechanical and photochemical rather than digital. Film had to be processed, reviewed, physically organized, and cut. Optical effects were created through laboratory processes. Every additional angle consumed film stock, processing time, and labor, encouraging careful preparation. The innovation is therefore not CGI. It is coordination. Aircraft pilots, stunt teams, camera operators, armorers, effects technicians, and performers must execute one shared timeline. The action feels large because dozens of specialized departments temporarily operate like one machine, turning dangerous physical events into controlled visual information. Production management converts imagination into schedules, contracts, and safe working procedures. This film required thousands of extras, military vehicles, aircraft, weapons, boats, jungle locations, and large-scale pyrotechnics. Every exciting frame depended on transportation, accommodation, meals, permits, communication, and trained personnel working behind the camera. Mexico substituted for Vietnam, with Acapulco serving as a production base. The decision demonstrates how location planning balances visual credibility against cost, infrastructure, and accessibility. A place does not need to be geographically authentic if its terrain, climate, and production facilities can create the required illusion. Crews reportedly worked 6-day weeks in temperatures approaching 100 degrees with extreme humidity. Such conditions reduce physical efficiency and increase safety risks. Heat affects performers, camera equipment, makeup, explosives, and transportation. Time becomes capital because every delayed hour extends wages, rentals, catering, and accommodation. The production also experienced tragedy when special effects technician Cliff Wenger Jr. died after inspecting a waterfall explosion. His death reminds us that practical spectacle carries human consequences. Financial success can never erase the responsibility to protect the people creating the product. Large action filmmaking depends on hierarchy, but hierarchy must support communication rather than silence it. Directors establish the creative objective. Assistant directors control movement and timing. Production managers protect the schedule. Safety teams control hazardous activity. Camera departments preserve the image. When these systems cooperate, chaos appears spontaneous on screen even though it has been carefully engineered. The audience sees Rambo improvising alone, but the production itself was built by disciplined collective planning. Historically, the story grows from genuine American pain surrounding prisoners and service members who remained unaccounted for after the Vietnam War. Families wanted answers, veterans felt neglected, and the possibility of abandoned captives became a powerful cultural fear. The film transforms that unresolved anxiety into a direct rescue fantasy. Its central prison camp should not be treated as documentary evidence. Later government investigations did not establish compelling evidence that living American prisoners continued to be secretly held in Vietnam. The movie uses uncertainty as dramatic fuel, giving audiences an emotionally satisfying answer to a question that reality could not resolve so simply. The Soviet presence also reflects Cold War storytelling. Soviet support for North Vietnam was historically real, but the film concentrates international politics into one clearly identifiable villain. This improves narrative efficiency while reducing historical complexity. Nations, military structures, and post-war negotiations become individual faces that the hero can confront. Some survival techniques have a foundation in special forces training. Camouflage, concealment, tracking, improvised movement, and environmental awareness are believable capabilities. Yet Rambo's endurance exceeds ordinary physiology. Severe falls, torture, blood loss, prolonged running, and repeated combat would produce exhaustion, dehydration, and impaired coordination. The weapons are similarly amplified. Explosive arrows provide excellent visual storytelling, but their destructive power and reliability serve cinema more than battlefield science. The film's strongest realism is emotional rather than technical. It understands that betrayal can injure a soldier as deeply as combat and that returning home does not automatically end a war inside the mind. Jack Cardiff's cinematography gives the film a visual identity larger than its dialogue. The jungle is photographed not merely as scenery but as a living system of concealment. Leaves, rain, fog, mud, and shadow repeatedly hide Rambo until movement reveals him. The environment becomes part of the suspense mechanism. Wide compositions establish geography before action breaks it apart. Riverbanks, prison structures, and helicopter flight paths are presented clearly enough for the audience to understand danger. This spatial clarity creates action ROI. When viewers know where the hero, prisoners, and enemy forces are positioned, each explosion has greater narrative value. Close-ups treat Stallone's body as visual architecture. Muscles, scars, sweat, mud, and concentrated eyes communicate effort without long dialogue. His silhouette with the bow became a highly marketable image because it can be recognized instantly. Effective cinematography does not only support story. It can manufacture intellectual property. Color separates emotional spaces. The command center uses controlled artificial light, representing bureaucracy and distance. The jungle contains greens, deep blacks, smoke and fire, representing instinct and uncertainty. Orange explosions interrupt the natural palette like violent punctuation. Night sequences rely on selective illumination rather than complete visibility. Faces emerge from darkness, weapons catch small highlights, and background depth is suggested through smoke and practical light. This limited information encourages the viewer to search the frame. Cardiff's visual engineering turns darkness into participation. We are not only watching Rambo hunt, our eyes are hunting with him. Jack Cardiff's cinematography gives the film a visual identity larger than its dialogue. The jungle is photographed not merely as scenery but as a living system of concealment. Leaves, rain, fog, mud and shadow repeatedly hide Rambo until movement reveals him. The environment becomes part of the suspense mechanism. Wide compositions establish geography before action breaks it apart. Riverbanks, prison structures, and helicopter flight paths are presented clearly enough for the audience to understand danger. This spatial clarity creates action ROI. When viewers know where the hero, prisoners, and enemy forces are positioned, each explosion has greater narrative value. Close-ups treat Stallone's body as visual architecture. Muscles, scars, sweat, mud, and concentrated eyes communicate effort without long dialogue. His silhouette with the bow became a highly marketable image because it can be recognized instantly. Effective cinematography does not only support story. It can manufacture intellectual property. Color separates emotional spaces. The command center uses controlled artificial light, representing bureaucracy and distance. The jungle contains greens, deep blacks, smoke and fire, representing instinct and uncertainty. Orange explosions interrupt the natural palette like violent punctuation. Night sequences rely on selective illumination rather than complete visibility. Faces emerge from darkness, weapons catch small highlights, and background depth is suggested through smoke and practical light. This limited information encourages the viewer to search the frame. Cardiff's visual engineering turns darkness into participation. We are not only watching Rambo hunt, our eyes are hunting with him. Sound gives the film much of its physical weight. Gunfire, helicopter blades, explosions, radio distortion, and jungle ambience create an environment that feels active even when the image is still. The soundscape continually reminds us that danger can arrive from beyond the camera frame. Jerry Goldsmith's score reconnects the character with the emotional memory of the first film while expanding the music for a larger action canvas. Brass expresses military force, percussion drives physical momentum, and electronic textures add modern tension. The score does not simply accompany action. It tells the audience when Rambo is vulnerable, when he is transforming, and when he has regained control. Silence is equally important. Before an ambush, environmental sound may become restrained, allowing breathing, footsteps, or the movement of leaves to dominate. This changes the viewer's attention from spectacle to anticipation. When the explosion finally arrives, the contrast increases its perceived power. Dolby Stereo gave selected theaters a more directional experience. Aircraft could move across the acoustic field, explosions could widen beyond the center, and music could surround dialogue without completely covering it. For 1985 audiences, this spatial design helped make the cinema itself feel like part of the battlefield. The sound effects editing earned an Academy Award nomination, demonstrating that even critics who questioned the screenplay could recognize the technical craft. This is an important production lesson. A film can receive mixed artistic reviews while individual departments still achieve exceptional professional standards. The marketing campaign understood anticipation as a financial asset. Promotional trailers were reportedly distributed to around 3,000 theaters roughly a year before release, even before the main film footage had been completed. The campaign was selling an event before it could sell finished scenes. The core advertisement was extremely efficient: a famous action star, an unfinished national mission, and the promise of overwhelming retaliation. Audiences did not need to study complex mythology. The concept could be communicated through one poster, one voiceover, and the image of a bow drawn against a burning sky. The release opened in more than 2,000 theaters, an exhibition record at the time. Wide distribution converted awareness into immediate ticket sales before audience interest could weaken. In modern language, the campaign created high reach, strong opening weekend conversion, and valuable cultural urgency. Audience analytics in 1985 lacked today's real-time dashboards, social listening, and digital attribution. Studios relied on theater performance, regional grosses, television exposure, print advertising, and audience research. Yet the strategic principle was the same: identify the most emotionally responsive audience and repeat the most effective promise. Merchandising expanded the campaign beyond adults, even though the film carried an adult rating. Toys, knives, posters, games, and other products separated the character's image from the film's violence. Marketing turned Rambo into a simplified symbol of strength and survival. That symbol could reach consumers who had never purchased a cinema ticket, proving that powerful audience recognition can be monetized far beyond the original content. Critical reception exposed a major divide between professional evaluation and audience satisfaction. Many critics believed the sequel had abandoned the emotional complexity of the earlier story and converted a traumatized veteran into an exaggerated action machine. Audiences, however, responded strongly to its speed, clarity, and fantasy of correction. The contradiction is visible in its awards history. The film received an Academy Award nomination for sound effects editing, recognizing genuine technical achievement. At the same time, it became a major presence at the Golden Raspberry Awards, winning in categories that criticized its picture, acting, screenplay, and song. Commercially, those negative awards did little to reduce demand. This demonstrates that critical approval and financial performance measure different forms of value. Critics may examine originality, moral complexity, and artistic development. Mass audiences may prioritize emotional release, star charisma, spectacle, and memorable imagery. Its legacy is enormous. The sequel helped establish the one-person army formula as a dominant action model. Countless later films, television programs, games, and advertisements borrowed its visual language. The isolated warrior, heavy weaponry, jungle camouflage, explosive revenge, and institutions that underestimate the individual. Yet its influence also changed public memory of the character. The vulnerable veteran of the earlier story became permanently associated with muscles, ammunition, and invincibility. That transformation weakened some of the original psychology but created greater franchise value. From a legacy perspective, the film sacrificed character subtlety to achieve iconic scale, and the market rewarded that choice for decades. The film survives because it understands cinema as a harmony of art, technology, and capital. Its art lies in the emotional image of an abandoned soldier demanding recognition. Its technology lies in the cameras, sound systems, aircraft, practical effects, and editing workflows that give physical shape to that emotion. Its capital lies in the financing, international distribution, marketing, and licensing systems that carried the image around the world. It is not a realistic history lesson, and its heroism often exceeds human possibility. Yet its exaggeration is part of its design. The film does not ask what one soldier could realistically accomplish. It asks what an audience might emotionally need one soldier to accomplish on its behalf. Rambo rescues prisoners, defeats enemy forces, and confronts the official who betrayed him, but his deepest request is remarkably simple. He wants the country to care for its soldiers as deeply as its soldiers were expected to care for the country. That message gives emotional meaning to the spectacle. Financially, the production demonstrates the value of recognizable intellectual property. Technologically, it captures a period when large action was created through practical coordination rather than digital simulation. Psychologically, it shows how betrayal, grief, and purpose can redirect human behavior. Artistically, it reveals both the power and danger of turning a wounded person into a profitable symbol. The final result is imperfect, excessive, and unforgettable. It may simplify history, but it explains Hollywood clearly. Audiences do not purchase explosions alone. They purchase the emotion that the explosion releases. If you found this deep dive meaningful, my literature-loving friends, consider liking and subscribing so we can keep decoding the business and beauty of cinema together.